10 of 10. It's one of the worst feelings you can have here on YouTube.
That absolute soul-crushing moment when all of your hard work feels like it's just failed.
But it doesn't mean it's the end of the road. Today, Jen and I are going to talk about what 10 of 10 means, what it doesn't mean, and how you can move forward in your YouTube journey. Here on The Boost by vidIQ. Okay, Jen, 10 of 10s, if you have more than 10 videos on YouTube, you probably have gotten at least one of these. It's time to talk about it.
We got to open up about it because only creators on YouTube know what a 10 of 10 is. That is foreign language to the rest of the world, and it's a really tough thing to deal with.
I think if anyone saw the thumbnail and title of this video, they knew immediately what we were talking about and how bad it feels to see that. But I do want to kind of talk about what that actually means, what it doesn't mean, and of course, the things you can do to hopefully avoid it in the future. Or sometimes you might be putting out a video that you know for a fact is going to be a 10 of 10 when it comes out. And we've seen this before. I know I've done it. I know it's happened to you. We talked to Regretless a couple of weeks back. She had some videos that were like 10 of 10 that ended up getting millions of views. So let's talk about what a 10 of 10 actually is, because it's really just a numeric number saying that of your last 10 in this time period, your video has gotten this many views. And if you rank them against your last 10, it's the quote worst one. But what does that mean to you as like a creator?
From a personal level as a creator, it means like you didn't do good enough. It feels like you didn't do good enough, that, you're never going to try this again. And as a coach and, looking inside on it, it's not quite that experience. And sometimes it can just mean that maybe we missed the mark a little bit. Sometimes it can mean that our community didn't connect with it right away. Or it can even mean that this might be the first piece of content that you tried that's something really new, and foreign things and the start of an experiment can sometimes look like 10 of 10s. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. What's happening is YouTube's just calculating your performance against your last 10, and it only is talking about the time period in which you were looking. So for example, if you check 3 hours in, you might be a 10 of 10. If you check another 2 hours later, you might be a 7 or 6 of 10, depending on how those other videos beforehand had performed over time. Just because it starts out as a 10 of 10 does not mean it will end as a 10 of 10. So what's happening in that moment? When a video is published, it gets published to your subscribers and to the people who've been to your channel most recently, typically on the YouTube homepage. From there, the way that people interact with your video kind of dictate whether or not you're going to get more impressions, which could lead to more views. So Jen, let's talk about when you release a piece of content that doesn't quite hit the mark. What are some of the reasons that typically you release something into your viewers and they don't click on it or don't watch it?
Say it could be a different style thumbnail. That would be, to me, the most automatic way that your audience maybe didn't even recognize it. Doesn't mean they didn't connect with it. It could be that they didn't recognize it. If we're talking face versus faceless thumbnails, your core audience, your community, the people that are just a ride or die there for you, they're going to recognize your face. They're going to click right away. That means so much to them. If you uploaded a video that, didn't have your face, was meant to be more discoverable to reach outside of that audience, well, your community might not click on it right away because it just looks a little different. They might not notice.
Who the is that guy?
One thing that we definitely have to get into detail about is the different intentions of different videos and what that looks like for ranking within those analytics there.
100% agree. But let's also talk about what being a 10 of 10 does not mean, because this actually kind of goes into what you were just saying. So a 10 of 10 video does not mean that it's a terrible video. It's just currently not matching with the viewership that's online right then and there. And to your point, Jen, sometimes we want to experiment with new types of content to see what happens, and that initial group of people maybe don't connect with it.
That's totally okay though too, because a lot of the times what we're trying to do is reach people outside of our audience. We want more subscribers. We want more views. These are goals that we hear, probably the most popular goals on the platform. And it can be okay if it doesn't connect with the audience that you have. And you can look at that in a little bit more of a positive light, knowing that it has the potential to connect with people outside of that. So it doesn't mean that your video is terrible and it's just a dud and it's going to just die on the platform there. It does have potential. And I think that one thing that creators will often do do is go in and change that video right away. We see 10 of 10, we panic. I'm guilty. Travis, I know you're guilty too. There's no creator in the world that hasn't seen a 10 of 10 and absolutely panicked, changed the title, changed the thumbnail, maybe even multiple times within that same day. And that's a natural reaction. But going into that video with confidence, knowing that you're trying something new, whatever component that is, just letting it sit, let it ride, let it take its journey through the YouTube algorithm and see what works.
Now, a lot of times this happens because we either thought something that we created in our mind, and certainly eventually in video, would connect with the audience we have, but sometimes that audience has a different thought as to what they expect from you. Now, to what Jen's saying here is sometimes it takes a little bit more time for YouTube to find the content for the viewers, and that's actually how it works. YouTube doesn't push our content out, it actually pulls it in for viewers. The one thing to remember is your viewership now may not be the one that you have in 3 to 6 months. It might be completely different, so sometimes that extra time can help. However, this is not to say that you should never change your thumbnail or title. It's just that sometimes, especially early on, and especially if it's an experimental video, you don't just want to quickly change things. What we always talk about here at vidIQ is making sure that your title and thumbnail tell the story about the video. So when someone clicks in, their expectations are met. If they aren't met, then they will probably click away, and that's a bad signal to the YouTube algorithm. Obviously something you don't want. So if you think you've packaged it correctly and you think the video is edited well and it tells a good story, then just waiting may exactly be what you need. So how do you know when to change the title or thumbnail? We just talked about being patient. Jen, what are the times you would think that changing the title or thumbnail are appropriate?
Being patient, first of all, as a creator, is like the hardest thing to do ever, because so many times we get such instant gratification from our 1 of 10s, our 2 of 10s, and just seeing videos do so well so quick that it's hard to have the patience when you feel confident in what you've put out. So some really good guidelines that I like to go by is just understanding the life of a video, at least the typical life of a video. Like Travis was saying, your subscribers are the first people that are going to see that. And then it's going to go out to kind of your casual audience, which are the people that don't watch every single video, but watch videos based off of kind of their interest. If you have something that piques their interest, they're going to click in, maybe skip the next one. And that's okay. Our core and our casual audience make up our subscriber base. And somewhere around 7 days, maybe even sometimes 3 days, I've seen that happen, is when it starts to get pushed out to that new audience. And that's where you start to see those numbers change and those analytics looking slightly different. But when we identify that time period, that could be a place where you want to reevaluate the title and thumbnail. If a week goes by and you're not seeing any movement and we're not reaching that new audience, that could be a telltale sign to reevaluate that packaging and see if this video has the opportunity to connect with the audience a little bit better.
What's interesting about this is this also ties into a question that I get a lot of, which is some of my older videos. Should I change the thumbnail and title of my old stuff? My rule of thumb is look at your retention. If your retention tends to be kind of high, like over 50% on a video that's, longer than 4 to 5 minutes, then that usually means that once people get in, they like it. It's just that some people aren't getting in, which means your title or thumbnail are keeping them from clicking in. So that's when you could do that. Same thing here. If after 5 or 6 days, you notice your retention staying pretty good, but your click-through rate maybe isn't coming in and your impressions aren't really coming in, then it's probably a title or thumbnail issue. Again, it could also be that it takes a lot longer for the people who are going to enjoy your videos to actually find out about your videos. Let's talk about that, and I'm going to show you an example that happened to me a couple of years ago, but I went into the video knowing that it was going to be a 10 of 10, and that mindset to just know that this isn't going to work for your community is so hard to deal with, especially immediately. Like, it performed exactly like I knew it would, terribly, but I'm going to show you the actual numbers and show you what happened. This was the first 24 hours of this video. As you can see, 7,000 less views than normal.
Brother,
Ouch,
it was horrible. And look at this. I love the information they gave about it. Compared to other previous videos on your channel, people who regularly watch your channel clicking on this less because of the title or thumbnail. I knew that going into it. Fewer views from recommendation. 789 views from recommendation when I typically get between 6,000 and 8,500 in the same time range. And the click-through rate was terrible. 3.7% compared to 9 to 11% for normal for me. First of all, my channel was cooking around this time. Look at 9 to 11% click-through rate, 9 to 10,000 views in a day. Look, that was a great time for me. This was not though. But I knew this was going to happen because this particular video I knew had a wide appeal, but to an audience that wasn't exactly the audience that was tuning into me at that time. This was not only a 10 of 10, this was probably a 40 of 40. Like if you got 40 of my last videos, it was the worst performing video. And while I was scared in the moment, I knew that this was what was going to happen. So this is the first 24 hours. But let me show you what happened ever since it's been published. So as you can see, for a very long time, it wasn't doing anything. As a matter of fact, for the first 25 days, 6,000 views. You gotta remember, I was getting more than that in the first 24 hours. And 29 days later, I was still not where I was supposed to be. But 2 months later, it was doing really well, and more and more and more. A year later, still going. 1.1 million, 1.2 million, 1.3 million. We're up almost to 1.4 million. And of course, it took a couple years. But the point is, between all of this time, I knew that this was a topic that people would like, and YouTube continued to find that viewership. Even if I had given up on it, YouTube never did.
Okay, Travis, so tell me, how did you not fall victim to changing this title thumbnail? How do you not, seeing all those gray arrows, seeing YouTube scold you? I think that's the worst part, honestly. They're just like telling you, like, this is doing really bad.
You know, the thing is, to your point, I never changed the title or thumbnail during the first couple of months. I did it towards the end of the year because it was changing years, but I never changed the thumbnail at all. I looked in advance and did a lot of research on the type of video I was making, and I found other videos that did well with this exact topic. So I looked at their thumbnails, looked at their titles, and I kind of made it very, very similar. But also equally important, I also figured out how the videos were made, how they were edited, how they were shot, the type of information that was given into them. And I made sure that my video at least had that, if not a little bit more, so that when people found my video eventually, and I knew they would, it would succeed.
How long would you say that it took until you really started to see traffic on that video? How patient did you actually have to stay?
Well, in looking at the graph, it looks like it was at an almost satisfactory number around 70 days. So.
Oh my gosh, I can just... That's patience though. And that is, you know, why you have to feel confident in yourself as a creator and in your decisions, because honestly, you ultimately know best. You have to go with your gut, but sometimes you just have to ride that decision out and be patient. Don't let the gray arrows bring you down.
And especially if you've done the research of the content that you're making in the first place. I think one thing that catches creators off guard is when they have a 10 of 10 that they didn't expect. It's because they thought creatively this thing would connect, and for whatever reason it didn't. In this particular case, I went into it knowing it would start out as a 10 of 10 and knowing that it had a very high ceiling. And by the way, to this day, it still gets views. So knowing that in advance, I wasn't as worried about the 10 of 10. And maybe that's what you need to do, is to steel yourself against that. Make some content that you know has an evergreen potential. Sure, they're not going to start off real hot and heavy, but eventually they'll continue to bring in views all the time, every day, every week for years to come.
And that video probably never even registered as a 1 of 10, did it? Didn't even fall in the timeline.
Ironically, it's my #1 of all time now. I guess if you look at it now, it's registered as #1 now. It's #1 in my heart for sure. So if you do the proper research on your videos, even though you might hit a 10 of 10, that doesn't mean it can't be your #1 video of all time. Leave a comment below. Let us know what type of videos you've had that have started out as an 8, 9, or 10 of 10 and have become some of your best performing videos ever. Also, we have some great tools here at vidIQ, and you can check them out in the link in the description below for free. So here are the 3 things to remember about 10 of 10 videos.
Don't be afraid to experiment. Part of the fun of being a creator is trying new things. So don't let that 10 of 10 be the end. It's not.
Understand when you should and should not make changes to the title and thumbnail.
And you want to know what else, Travis? Knowing when to make those changes. Sometimes we're a little bit too close to our content. Having a one-on-one coach, however, having those fresh eyes to help you make those decisions can be really beneficial. Smooth plug there.
There you go. Links in the description. And doing research for videos before you shoot them can help avoid those 10 of 10s. By the way, we have a bunch of brutal advice that Jen and I just gave. Make sure you hit that link right there because it's pretty savage.